The old moving truck's low thrum provided the backdrop to my days. Every day the same rhythm, the clatter of dollies, the thud of boxes, the creak of floorboards in strangers' homes. My name's Alex, and for the last 5 years I have handled removals. It's a grunt job, sure, but it's honest. You lift, you load, you drive, you unload. Repeat. Most days are a blur of cardboard and dust, of anonymous faces and homes that all start to look the same. You learn to be invisible, efficient. You learn to overlook the odd smells, the arguments, the peculiar collections. I found solace in the repetition, the straightforward task. My detachment offered protection, until that Tuesday. The job order arrived late Monday afternoon, a small specialized pickup. One single heavy item, rural address. No difficulty, I thought. Easy money. My colleague Mark was unwell, so it was just me. Typically, I favored solo runs, less forced conversation. The satellite signal began to falter about 10 miles out. The paved road turned to gravel, then simply 2 tire tracks winding through a canopy of overgrown trees. The air grew still, heavy. No distant sounds of traffic, no barking dogs. Just the rattling of my old Ford Econoline and the buzz of insects. Out of sight. My phone displayed no service, just wonderful. Finally, the trees parted, revealing the dwelling. It stood in a small clearing, appearing less like a home and more like something the forest was gradually attempting to reclaim. The paint was peeling in long, curling strips, uncovering patches of weathered wood beneath. The porch sagged, and one of the support beams looked like it was bowing under the weight of some unapparent burden. The windows were murky with grime, mirroring the dull sky like blind eyes. One entire side of the house, facing away from the track, appeared to have no windows at all, just dark, unyielding wall. The lawn was a tangle of weeds and tall, dry grass. A mailbox leaned precariously by the property entrance, cobbled together, from rusted metal parts, and painted with a faded, unidentifiable symbol. No other vehicles were parked anywhere, not even a faint shape suggesting recent departure. A profound sense of neglect clung to the place, but also something else, something I couldn't quite name, an unsettling quietude that made the hairs on my arms prickle. I parked the van, cutting the engine. The sudden silence was absolute, almost ringing in my ears. I drew a deep breath, trying to dispel the strange feeling. It was merely an old rundown house. I retrieved my dolly and clipboard and walked towards the porch, the dry leaves crunching under my work boots. Before I could even knock, the door opened, creaking inward without a sound. An old man stood there, 50, perhaps early 60s, but with a weary age etched deep into his skin. His clothes were simple, faded, almost blending into the drab interior visible behind him. What struck me first were his eyes. They were wide, disturbingly so, and utterly motionless, like chips of polished granite. They didn't blink or dart, or even seem to fix on me so much as through me. "Alex," he said, his voice flat, devoid. Thou of inflection like a recording. "You're here for the crate." "That's correct, sir. Alex from Apex Movers." The order indicated a large wooden crate. I tried to keep my voice light, professional. He gave no answer, simply stepped aside, his head tilting slightly. He did not retreat, though, merely shifted enough to allow me entry, maintaining an unusual proximity that made me instinctively stiffen. The initial request was clear enough, but his delivery, his unblinking stare, the unnatural stillness of his posture, it felt peculiar. The moment I stepped inside, the air assailed me. It was thick, humid, and heavy with a distinct, unidentifiable scent. Sweet, almost sickly like rotting fruit, but with a sharp metallic undercurrent like old blood mixed with something acrid, almost chemical. It wasn't an unpleasant smell, not precisely, but it was profoundly disquieting. A scent that didn't belong in a home. The house was vacant, not like someone had just left, but like it had never been occupied. The walls were bare, the floors dusty, no furniture, no pictures, no knickknacks, except for one room off to the left. As I walked past the open doorway, I saw it, packed floor to ceiling with what looked like furniture draped in white sheets, like silent, hunched figures. It resembled a storage unit, but deep inside someone's home. The windows in that room were completely blacked out, covered from the inside with thick, opaque material. In other rooms, the windows were just obscured by grime. "The crate is in the cellar," the old man, Silas, stated, his voice unchanging. He turned, his movements stiff, almost mechanical, and began walking towards the rear of the house. He didn't glance back to see if I was following, just continued at a slow, deliberate pace. I followed him down a short hall. The floorboards here groaned under my weight, but not his. Ahead, I saw a narrow set of stairs leading down into darkness. My heart began to beat a little faster. This was not a typical cellar entrance. It was nearly concealed, through a pantry that smelled faintly of mildew and that same sickly, sweet scent. As I descended the creaking steps, the air grew colder, damper. The silence was even deeper below. It felt like entering a tomb. Silas stood at the bottom, a shadow against the weak light filtering from the pantry above. He indicated with a long, bony finger. "There," he said. In the center of the small, earthen-floored cellar sat the crate. It was large, truly, maybe 5 feet long, 3 feet wide and about 4 feet high. Made of rough, dark wood, bound with thick, rusted iron straps. It looked ancient and heavy. Far heavier than anything I'd moved prior, judging by its bulk. There were no markings on it, no labels. I set down my dolly. "Very well, sir." "What's inside?" I asked, primarily to break the oppressive silence. Silas's eyes were fixed on the crate, wide and unblinking. "The package," he reiterated, his voice still flat. He took a single, slow step closer to it, his head cocked slightly, to the side as if listening. I circled the crate, attempting to assess its mass. As I bent to grip one of the straps, a faint, almost imperceptible sound came from within. A soft scrape, metallic, like something dragging against wood. My breath hitched. I froze, listening. Nothing. Just the pounding of my own blood in my ears. I must have imagined it. My eyes scanned the low ceiling, the damp stone walls. That's when I noticed it. Tucked into a corner, almost indistinguishable from a dust-covered light fixture, was a tiny, dark lens, barely bigger than a pinprick. But it was there. And it was pointed directly at the crate and at me, a hidden camera. A sudden, cold dread seized me. This wasn't right. This wasn't a standard moving job. My hand instinctively went to my pocket, searching for my phone. It wasn't there. I always kept it in my right cargo pocket. I checked again. Nothing. Panic flared. Did I leave it in the truck? No, I knew I had it when I got out. My keys were still there, thankfully, a small comfort. "Sir, I need to retrieve more equipment from the truck," I stammered, my voice sounding strained even to my own ears. "This is heavier than I anticipated. I'll need a larger dolly." Silas remained standing by the foot of the stairs, obstructing the most direct path out. His unnerving gaze had shifted from the crate to me. "No need," he said, his voice still unnervingly calm. "You're strong, just push it." He took another slow step forward, closer to the crate, closer to me. The air in the cellar felt like it was pressing in on me. I felt watched, exposed, every instinct screaming at me to get out. The faint, sickly, sweet scent seemed to intensify, blending with a faint metallic tang. I could hear Silas's breathing now, shallow and quick. My mind raced. The camera, the absent phone, the strange crate, the unsettling quiet, the smell, Silas's unblinking eyes, his refusal to let me leave. This was no longer merely an odd job. This was a snare. I didn't hesitate. My panic surged, overriding all protocol, all politeness. I feigned a stumble, pushing hard off the crate with my shoulder, using the momentum to spin past Silas. He was surprisingly swift, his arm shooting. Out to grab me, but I was faster, fueled by pure terror. His fingers brushed my jacket, but I was already scrambling up the cellar stairs, 2 at a time. I burst out of the pantry, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The house seemed even more oppressive now, a complex maze built to ensnare me. I could hear Silas's heavy, rapid shuffles behind me. He wasn't running, but he was moving with an unnatural speed for an old man. The front door. I sprinted towards it, my heart hammering against my ribs. I reached for the knob, twisting it. Locked, and chained from the inside, a thick, rusted chain I hadn't noticed when I came in. My blood ran cold. He had locked me in. My eyes darted around frantically. Windows. They were all grimy, likely painted shut. But there was a small side door I'd glimpsed on the way in, near the vacant, sheet-covered room. It looked flimsier. I lunged for it, throwing my weight against the warped wood. It groaned, shuddered, and then splintered with a sickening crack. I stumbled through the opening, scraping my arm on a jagged splinter of wood, but I didn't care. I was out. I didn't look back. I ran blindly through the overgrown yard, tearing through tall weeds and tripping over hidden roots. The strange mailbox seemed to leer at me as I burst onto the gravel track. My van, my lifeline. I scrambled inside, fumbling with the keys in my pocket, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the ignition. It turned. The engine roared to life. I jammed it into reverse, tires spitting gravel, and sped away from that house of horrors. I didn't stop until I was back on the paved road, 10 miles down, the silence of the woods replaced by the familiar hum of the highway. My arm throbbed, a thin line of blood welling from the splinter wound. I pulled over, my whole body trembling. I found my phone then. It had been in my back pocket, pushed deep down. I hadn't checked there in my panic. Relief was immense, swiftly followed by a fresh wave of nausea. I called 911, my voice hoarse, recounting the bizarre, terrifying encounter. The police arrived about 20 minutes later, 2 patrol cars. They listened patiently, their faces impassive. They took my statement, my splintered arm serving as the only tangible proof of my struggle. Then they went to the house. I waited by my truck, watching the yellow police tape go up. An hour later, they returned. "Mr. Davis," the officer said, his tone sympathetic but firm, "we found the house. It's precisely as you described, dilapidated. But it's vacant. No one present, no crate, no old man, no hidden cameras. That we could locate." He paused. "And the side door, it looks like it's been rotting for years. It appears to have just fallen in." My blood ran cold again. Vacant? No old man? No crate? My story sounded like the ravings of a madman. They couldn't establish anything. There was no indication of a crime, no sign of the unsettling client, no strange crate, no hidden camera. Just an empty, derelict house and a terrified mover with a scraped arm. The entire event was officially labeled a misunderstanding, a lapse in my own judgment. I told my boss I'd hit a deer. I couldn't bear telling him the truth. I've never returned to that house. I never will. I left Apex Movers a month later. Now I work in a warehouse, moving inanimate boxes that don't contain unsettling secrets. But I still haven't fully escaped. That sickly sweet smell, the scrape from the crate, Silas's unblinking eyes, they persist in my memory, a phantom presence. I check every lock twice now. I avoid eye contact with strangers, and every time I hear a floorboard creak in an empty room or feel a sudden, inexplicable chill, I remember that isolated house and the man with the granite eyes. The routine world used to be just that, routine. Now, it's a veneer, thin and fragile, behind which anything, truly anything, can conceal itself, and I'm constantly, terrifyingly aware of it.